Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back into a world of powdered wigs and polished cruelty, where morning chocolate comes with a side of casual violence, and the distance between a lord's breakfast table and a debtor's cell is shorter than you'd think. Welcome to Georgian England, where elegance wore a mask that barely covered the bones beneath. Before we begin our journey through cobblestone streets and candlelit rooms, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy these deep dives into history's stranger corners. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I read every single one, usually around 2 a.m. when the rest of the world is sensibly asleep. Now get comfortable, adjust your pillows, maybe pull up a blanket. Georgian ladies and gentlemen would insist you needed at least 3 layers regardless of season, but you're free to make your own choices. Dim those lights, turn on a fan if the white noise helps, and settle in. We've got a long night ahead and plenty of stories to tell. Before we dive too deep, let me paint you a picture. What did people actually eat in Georgian England? Was it all roast beef and plum pudding, or something grayer? How many ways could you accidentally poison yourself with everyday items? What happened if you couldn't pay your debts? And why were children involved? And perhaps most unsettling of all, why did respectable families keep memento mori in the parlor like other people keep houseplants? Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1750, somewhere in the bustling, stinking, magnificent disaster that is Georgian London. The reign stretches from 1714 to 1830, a long century that spans 4 King Georges and contains enough drama, innovation, and casual brutality to fill 1,000 history books, which it has. You open your eyes to a room that smells of tallow candles, coal smoke, and something unidentifiable that might be last week's dinner or this morning's street. If you're lucky enough to be in a decent house, you'll have a fire going in the grate, though the chimney probably smokes more than it should. If you're less fortunate, you're waking up in a rookery, one of London's notorious slums, where you share your room with several families, various livestock, and a population of rats so bold they practically pay rent. The sounds of the city rise like a poorly conducted orchestra. Street vendors shout their wares in voices trained to carry 3 blocks. Hot cross buns, fresh milk, any old iron. A knife grinder's wheel screeches somewhere nearby. Church bells mark the hour, though which hour depends on which church you believe. Hooves clatter on cobblestones. A cartwheel creaks. Someone empties a chamber pot from an upper window with a perfunctory cry of "Gare de Lou!" which is supposedly a warning, but mostly serves as sound effects for the splash that follows. The Thames flows through the city like a sluggish vein, carrying sewage, industrial waste, and the occasional corpse. In summer, the smell is indescribable. Members of Parliament debate while pressing handkerchiefs soaked in lavender to their noses. The great stink won't reach its peak until Victorian times, but Georgian London is already practicing. Let me give you the grand tour, starting with the architecture of society itself. At the top sits the monarchy, currently one of 4 Georges, depending on which decade we've landed in. George I barely speaks English and prefers Hanover. George II is a soldier who takes credit for the last time a British monarch leads troops in battle. George III will go mad, possibly from porphyria, possibly from the stress of losing America, definitely from something that makes him talk to trees and wear purple. George IV, as Prince Regent and then King, will spend money like water and build follies while the nation groans under debt. Below the crown spreads the aristocracy, a glittering pyramid of dukes, earls, viscounts, and barons, each with their carefully calibrated privileges and equally carefully calculated debts. The ton, high society, operates by rules so complex they'd make a medieval guildmaster weep. You cannot call before 2 in the afternoon. You must never arrive early. Your card must be turned down at the correct corner to signal the correct message. Breaking these rules means social death,
which for some is worse than the regular kind. Fashion in Georgian England is spectacular, impractical, and occasionally lethal. Men powder their hair or their wigs with starch and flour, creating elaborate sculptures that require wooden frames and patience. The fashion peaks in the 1770s when hair towers become so tall that ladies have to kneel in their carriages. Rumors circulate about mice nesting in these constructions, though whether that's truth or urban legend is still debated by historians with too much time on their hands. Joke 1. If your hair is on fire, is it a fashion disaster or a hat emergency? Georgian London genuinely couldn't decide. Women's gowns in the early Georgian period feature panniers, side hoops that extend the hips to cartoonish widths. Walking through a door requires careful angles and some geometric intuition. Later, the empire waist arrives, high-waisted and flowing, mercifully simpler but no warmer. Regardless of the decade, modesty is paramount in public, though what goes on at private masquerades is another story entirely. Makeup is a minefield. Lead-based powders promise porcelain skin and deliver poison. White lead, ceruse, bismuth, all toxic, all popular. Ladies applied daily, building up layers until their faces become masks. The aesthetic is to look pale, delicate, consumptive. Healthy color suggests you work outdoors, which suggests you're poor, which is social death. Patches of various shapes, stars, hearts, crescents, dot fashionable faces, covering smallpox scars or just adding visual interest.
Teeth are another horror show. Sugar, newly available from the colonies, rots mouths with enthusiastic speed. Toothbrushes exist but aren't popular. Dentistry is barber's work, painful, public, and performed without anesthesia until the very end of the period. Many people have bad teeth, some have none. Dentures made from ivory, porcelain, or the teeth of corpses, preferably young, healthy corpses, which means battlefields are harvested like particularly grim orchards. Let's talk about smell. The Georgian nose encounters a symphony of scents, most of them profoundly unpleasant. Personal hygiene is spotty at best. Full baths are rare. Wigs hide greasy hair. Perfume masks body odor. The wealthy change their linen often, the visible shirt or shift, but the outer garments might go months between cleanings. Dry cleaning doesn't exist. Water shrinks wool. So people air their clothes, beat them with sticks, and hope for the best. The streets are worse. Horse manure piles up faster than crossing sweepers can clear it. Dogs roam in packs. Pigs root through garbage. Butchers toss offal into gutters. Tanneries release chemicals that would violate a dozen modern laws. And everywhere, the smell of coal smoke and human waste creates a fog you can taste. Inside Georgian homes, the smell is more specific but no better. Tallow candles reek of rendered fat. Fires smoke. Food spoils in cupboards. Chamber pots need emptying. Servants' quarters smell of too many bodies in too small a space. Wealthy houses try to counter all this with pomanders, potpourri, and the burning of aromatic substances, creating a mashup of scents that probably just made things more confusing. The architecture of Georgian London is genuinely beautiful. The period leaves an elegant mark. Terraced houses march in neat rows, brick fronts with regular windows. Squares offer green breathing spaces for the wealthy, their gardens locked behind iron railings. Churches designed by Wren and Hawksmoor spike the skyline. But beauty and brutality live as neighbours. The same street might hold a gracious townhouse and a rookery where 50 people share one overflowing cesspit. Coffee houses become the period's social media, places where men gather to read newspapers, debate politics, gossip, and conduct business. Different houses cater to different crowds. Lloyd's Coffee House evolves into Lloyd's of London. The London Stock Exchange starts in a coffee house. Ideas circulate as freely as the drink itself, which is fortunate because the coffee is often terrible. Roasted too dark, ground too fine, brewed to bitterness. Gin is the period's tragedy and comfort rolled into one cheap bottle. The gin craze of the 1720s to 1750s sees London drowning in the stuff. It's cheaper than beer, stronger than wine, and easier to get than clean water. Signs advertise drunk for a penny, dread drunk for twopence, clean straw for nothing, meaning you can drink yourself unconscious and sleep it off in the cellar. William Hogarth's Gin Lane captures the horror. A woman so drunk she drops her baby, a man gnawing on a bone while a dog steals what might be a child's corpse. The authorities panic and pass laws. Gin becomes harder to get, then easier, then harder again, in the legislative equivalent of a drunk person trying to walk a straight line. Eventually, higher prices and better enforcement help, but the damage lingers. Alcoholism is rampant, families destroyed, children raised in taverns. The cheap spirits leave a stain on the period that never quite washes out.
Entertainment ranges from the sublime to the sadistic. The theater thrives. Drury Lane and Covent Garden host everything from Shakespeare to pantomime. Pleasure gardens like Vauxhall offer music, fireworks, and discreet paths for assignations. Masquerades let people pretend to be someone else for an evening, masks enabling behavior that daylight would condemn, but there's also bear baiting, bull baiting, cockfighting, and public executions as spectator sports. Crowds gather at Tyburn to watch hangings, buying broadsheets about the condemned, wagering on how long the death throes will last. It's not cruelty for its own sake, or not entirely. It's entertainment in an age with few diversions and even less sympathy. The newspapers arrive, spreading gossip and scandal with gleeful abandon. The printing press means ideas travel faster than ever before. Pamphlets attack politicians. Satirical prints mock the powerful. Novelists invent new forms, Richardson's epistolary tales, Fielding's picaresque adventures, later Austen's comedies of manners. Reading rooms and circulating libraries mean even people of modest means can access books, though novels are still somewhat suspect, too exciting, possibly corrupting, and definitely not serious. Science and superstition dance an awkward waltz. The Royal Society conducts experiments, Newton's laws gain acceptance, astronomy maps the heavens, chemistry begins to separate from alchemy, but people also consult astrologers, believe in ghosts, and purchase charms against evil. Witch trials become rare but don't disappear completely. The mob still occasionally ducks a suspected witch in the local pond, and if she drowns, well, at least they know she was innocent. Medicine makes genuine advances during the Georgian period. We'll explore the horrors in detail later, but it's still a field where guesswork meets tradition and occasionally stumbles over something useful. Smallpox inoculation arrives from the Ottoman Empire, championed by Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, who had seen it work. It's crude, deliberately infecting people with mild cases to prevent severe ones, but it works, though the medical establishment resists for years because it came from abroad, and worse, from a woman. Education is spotty and class-bound. The wealthy hire tutors or send sons to Eton, Harrow, Westminster. Daughters learn to be ornamental, music, drawing, French, just enough to catch a husband and not embarrass him at dinner. Universities are for gentlemen only, closed to dissenters, Catholics, and anyone female. But literacy is spreading. Charity schools teach the poor to read the Bible. Dame schools offer basic lessons. The Sunday school movement starts late in the period, teaching working children when they're not laboring. Transportation is slow and dangerous. Walking is free but tiring. Sedan chairs carry those who can afford them. Hackney coaches rattle through streets driven by men whose navigation skills are learned through experience and whose tempers are learned from their horses. Stagecoaches connect cities, their schedules optimistic, their breakdowns frequent. Travel by sea means storms, pirates, or press gangs who might grab unwary passengers for the Navy.
Religion permeates daily life but also fractures it. The Church of England is established, powerful, often corrupt.
Some clergy hold multiple livings, hiring curates to do the work while collecting the income. Others genuinely serve their parishes. Dissenters, Baptists, Quakers, Presbyterians, face legal restrictions but persist. Catholics are distrusted, barred from office, suspected of treasonous loyalty to the Pope. Jews live in small communities, tolerated but not truly accepted. Methodism erupts mid-century, John Wesley preaching to crowds who gather in fields because churches won't have them. His message of personal salvation, emotional worship, and social reform attracts the working poor, who find Anglican services cold. The establishment mocks the enthusiasm of these believers. Emotion in religion is vulgar. But the movement grows anyway, spreading discipline and hope in equal measure. As evening falls on our first day in Georgian England, you begin to understand the texture of daily life. It's not the elegant balls and witty drawing rooms of costume drama, or not just that. It's also the stink of the streets, the casual cruelty of justice, the constant negotiation between appearance and reality. It's a world where a lord might spend more on a wig than a family earns in a year, where gin costs less than milk, where entertainment and execution blur into each other. You pull your blanket closer. Georgian blankets were scratchy wool or expensive silk, rarely washed, and your modern one is already an improvement. And prepare for the next part of our journey. Because we've only glimpsed the surface. The real horrors wait deeper in, where medicine meets madness, where debt meets prison, where death meets commerce. Sleep tight. The worst is yet to come. Morning arrives with the clash of church bells and the cry of street vendors, whether you want it to or not. The Georgian day operates on schedules as rigid as corset boning, though the schedules themselves depend entirely on your station. Let's walk through a day in Georgian England from top to bottom, dawn to dusk, and discover how every hour contains its own small tyrannies. If you're wealthy, you don't rise with the sun. That would be vulgar, suggesting you have work to do. You wake up whenever your servants have prepared everything, fires lit, water heated, chocolate or tea ready. A lady might breakfast in bed, receiving intimate friends for morning gossip while still in her nightclothes. A gentleman rises, dresses with his valet's help, Georgian menswear requires assistance, and perhaps takes breakfast in his study while reading the papers. The middle classes rise earlier, respectability requiring them to be seen working even if they're gentlefolk. The master of the house might walk to his counting house or chambers. His wife oversees the servants, plans meals, makes calls. Everyone maintains a performance of industriousness even when the work is mostly delegating. Working people rise before dawn because work starts at dawn and you need time to walk there. A maid's day begins at 5 or 6, lighting fires throughout the house, heating water, emptying chamber pots, sweeping, dusting. She might work until 11 at night with brief breaks to eat standing in the kitchen. Her 1 day off per month is insufficient, but better than nothing. Her wages are low but regular, and she gets to sleep indoors, which is more than many can say.
Breakfast varies wildly by class. The wealthy enjoy chocolate, thick, rich, the beverage of choice for those who can afford sugar and cocoa from the colonies. Tea becomes increasingly popular, especially after 1750, though it's expensive enough that servants sometimes reuse the leaves or extend them with cheaper additives. Coffee is common in public houses, but less so at home. The English are already becoming the tea-drinking nation they'll be famous for, though they haven't quite reached the point where offering a cup solves all problems.
Food-wise, breakfast might include bread and butter, cold meat, eggs, cheese. The wealthy indulges in a full spread. The poor make do with bread. If they're lucky, yesterday's. If they're unlucky, something older and harder. Porridge made from oats is common, cheap, filling, and dull. Children might get milk porridge. Adults might add a splash of beer for flavor and calories. Ale and beer are breakfast drinks for all classes because water is often unsafe. The brewing process kills pathogens, even if no one understands why. Small beer, low alcohol, high hydration, is what children drink. Regular beer accompanies dinner. Gin, as mentioned, is everywhere and problematic. Wine is for the wealthy, tea for the aspirational, and clean water is for the fortunate few who live near a reliable spring. The streets wake up in stages. First come the servants, hurrying on errands. Then the shopkeepers, opening their premises, setting out goods. Street vendors with their distinctive cries. Each trade has its own call, and residents learn to tell the milk seller from the fishmonger without looking. Crossing sweepers station themselves at busy intersections, sweeping a path through the muck in exchange for pennies. Prostitutes finishing their night's work pass housewives heading to market, the two groups pretending the other doesn't exist. Let's follow a middle-class housewife on her morning rounds. Mrs. Abbott, we'll call her, lives in a respectable townhouse with her husband, a lawyer, 2 children, and 3 servants. She rises at 7, dresses with her maid's help in layers of linen, stays, petticoats, gown. The process takes half an hour. Her hair is pinned up, perhaps with a small cap. Powder is for evening, or for the very fashionable, which she is not quite. After breakfast, she consults with her cook about the day's meals. Dinner, the main meal, is served in the afternoon, around 2 or 3 for most people, later for the fashionable set. The menu requires negotiation. What's in season? What did yesterday's shopping yield? What can the budget stretch to? Meat is expensive but expected. A joint of mutton, perhaps. Vegetables from the market. Bread from the baker. The coal range isn't quite reliable enough for baking, and besides, the baker does it better. Mrs. Abbott walks to the market with her maid carrying a basket. The streets are crowded, noisy, smelly. Vendors shout prices that change depending on how wealthy you look. The meat is hung in open stalls, attracting flies. The fish hasn't seen ice. Ice houses exist, but are for the wealthy. Vegetables are fresher, thankfully, brought in from market gardens outside the city. She haggles for everything because fixed prices aren't yet standard, and overpaying marks you as either foolish or nouveau riche.
Shopping complete, she returns home for the serious business of receiving and making calls. Calling hours are 2 to 5. You leave a card if the lady isn't home or isn't receiving. If she is, you stay exactly 15 minutes. Any longer presumes intimacy. Any shorter suggests insult. Conversation follows strict patterns. Health, family, the weather, perhaps a little gentle gossip carefully phrased. Politics and religion are for men. Money is vulgar to mention. Scandal is delicious, but must be presented with appropriate horror. The servants, meanwhile, have their own hierarchies and dramas. The butler, if the house is grand enough, rules the male servants. The housekeeper rules the female. Below them, footmen, valets, ladies' maids, cooks, kitchen maids, scullery maids, each with precise duties, each protective of their small privileges. A lady's maid might refuse to empty chamber pots. That's below her station. A scullery maid might empty them all while dreaming of promotion to kitchen maid, where at least you work near the fire. Servants eat after the family, often eating the family's leftovers, which isn't as bad as it sounds when the family dines well. In poorer households, servants might eat worse than their employers or not much better. The work is grueling. A housemaid might climb dozens of flights of stairs daily, carrying water, coal, laundry. The repetitive labor wears bodies out young. Varicose veins, joint problems, chronic exhaustion. These are the servant's occupational hazards, along with the ever-present risk of dismissal without reference if you displease. Sexual exploitation is the unspoken danger. A pretty maid might catch a son's eye or the master's. If she refuses, she might be dismissed for impertinence.
If she accepts, whether willingly or not, and becomes pregnant, she's dismissed for immorality. The system is rigged against her. Some households are safe. Many aren't. References are everything, and a dismissed servant without one faces grim choices: a worse position, prostitution, the workhouse. Let's shift to the working poor, whose days follow different rhythms. A laborer rises even earlier than a maid, walking to the docks, the markets, construction sites. Work is found by showing up and hoping. Casual labor dominates. You work when there's work, and you don't when there isn't. Some days you earn enough for food and rent. Some days you don't. There's no safety net, no unemployment insurance, no sick pay. You work or you starve. Street vendors need more initiative. You need goods to sell and a pitch to sell from. Some trades are licensed, others tolerated, others harassed. A fruit seller sets up early, hoping to catch the breakfast trade. A pie seller heats his wares over a portable stove. The quality is questionable. Meat pies might contain meat or might contain what the dog didn't want. But they're hot, cheap, and filling, which is what counts when you're hungry and have 2 pennies. Children work too. Child labor is universal and unremarkable. A boy might be apprenticed at 7, bound to a master who will teach him a trade and probably treat him terribly. A girl might go into service even younger, starting as a maid of all work in a household that can't afford adult servants. Chimney sweeps employ climbing boys, small, flexible, and cheap, who squirm up flues in ways that regularly kill them. The public knows and mostly doesn't care. Factory work is just beginning. Textile mills in the north running on water power, then steam. The work is dangerous, machines have no safety guards, children lose fingers, exhaustion leads to accidents. But it's regular employment and pays in actual money rather than kind, so people take it. The agricultural laborers, displaced by enclosures, drift to cities seeking factory work, swelling populations beyond what infrastructure can handle.
Dinner arrives in the afternoon for those who can afford it. The working poor might eat bread and cheese if they're lucky, nothing if they're not. The middle classes serve a proper meal, multiple courses, proper table settings, everyone dressed appropriately. The wealthy dine even later, turning dinner into evening entertainment, the meals stretching for hours with removes and side dishes and desserts and fruits and nuts. Table manners are elaborate. Forks are standard by Georgian times, thankfully, but the knife work is specific. You don't switch hands after cutting. You don't gesture with cutlery. You don't reach across the table. You wait for ladies to be served first. You wait for your betters to begin. The meal is as much performance as sustenance, a daily reminder of where everyone stands. Conversation at dinner has rules too. The host sets the tone. Topics flow in prescribed channels. If someone introduces a controversial subject, say the American War, voices might rise, but propriety demands they fall again before coffee. Ladies withdraw after dinner, leaving men to their port and politics. The women gossip more freely in the drawing room, though they'd be scandalized to hear it called that. Afternoons for the wealthy mean leisure, reading, walking in the park if weather permits, visiting, napping. For everyone else, it means more work. The maid who rose at 5 is still going, now serving tea, now preparing for dinner, now cleaning up after. The laborer works until dusk, then walks home, too tired to do much beyond eat and sleep. Evening entertainment varies. The wealthy might attend the theater, the opera, a concert, a ball. The season, when Parliament sits and society gathers in London, is a whirlwind of social events, each with its own rules. You must be invited, you must know the dances, you must make conversation that's witty but not too clever, engaging but not too forward. Matchmaking happens at balls, fortunes are made and lost at card tables, reputations are destroyed by a poorly timed exit with the wrong person. The middle classes entertain at home more often. A dinner party, a musical evening, cards. The host provides refreshments, tea, cakes, perhaps a light supper late in the evening. The guests provide conversation and music.
A daughter might play the pianoforte, another sing. The performance is part of her value on the marriage market, demonstrating accomplishment and deportment. The poor have simpler pleasures. A drink at the public house after work, the warmth of a fire, companionship. Street musicians play for pennies. Ballad sellers hawk the latest news in song. In summer, parks and commons offer free entertainment, watching jugglers, listening to preachers, just sitting somewhere green. In winter, people huddle indoors, multiple families sharing heat and space. Bedtime is early for most. Candles and oil are expensive. Work starts early. You sleep when it's dark because staying awake costs money. The wealthy stay up later, their superior lighting enabling social lives that extend past sunset. A fashionable ball might not end until 3 or 4 in the morning, guests stumbling home as the servants are rising.
Sleep itself is different in Georgian England. Beds are shared. Couples, siblings, even strangers at inns. Privacy is for the wealthy. Most people sleep shorter hours, but in 2 phases, waking for an hour or 2 around midnight, then sleeping again until dawn. This first sleep and second sleep pattern is common across pre-industrial societies, though it will vanish with gaslighting and factory schedules. Dreams and nightmares are taken seriously. People believe dreams can predict the future, that nightmares are warnings or visitations. Dream interpretation books sell well. Some dreams are never spoken aloud. To name certain things is to invite them. Waking from a nightmare, you might pray for protection or perform a small ritual to ward off what the dream revealed. The day ends as it began, with the sounds of the city. Now drunken songs instead of vendors' cries. Now watchmen calling the hours instead of church bells marking time. 12 o'clock and a fine, clear night. Unless it's raining, in which case they call that 2. The watch patrols with lanterns and cudgels, breaking up fights, moving along beggars, being ineffective against actual crime, but providing the appearance of order. Mrs. Abbott, back in her respectable house, prepares for bed. Her maid helps her undress, hanging the gown carefully, loosening the stays with relief. A nightgown, a cap, a final check that all is well, fires banked, doors locked, children sleeping. She climbs into bed beside her husband, who came up an hour earlier. They don't speak much. Tomorrow will be the same pattern repeated. The same round of duties and calls and meals, the comfortable tedium of respectable life. Below stairs, the servants climb to their attic rooms, 2 or 3 to a bed, exhausted. They whisper gossip, what happened today, what they overheard, who's courting whom. The housemaid dreams of promotion. The footman dreams of opening his own business. The scullery maid just dreams of sleep, without her feet aching. On the streets, those without homes find what shelter they can. Doorways, under bridges, in the hulks of condemned buildings. They huddle for warmth, guard their few possessions, wake at any noise. The night is dangerous for them. Thieves, drunks, the cold itself. Morning will be a victory simply for arriving. We'll leave them there, all of Georgian England settling into sleep in their various corners, some comfortable, some not sleeping at all. The pattern will repeat tomorrow and the day after. The great machine of society grinding on, everyone knowing their place, or at least pretending to. Next, we'll explore what happens when the machine breaks down, when bodies fail, when minds crack, when the period's medicine tries to help and often makes things unspeakably worse. Morning brings aches to those unaccustomed to Georgian beds, lumpy mattresses stuffed with straw or horsehair, pillows that offer more symbolism than support. You wake with your neck at an unfortunate angle and think about seeking medical help. Then you remember where you are and decide the neck pain is probably preferable to the cure.
Georgian medicine sits at a fascinating crossroads between medieval tradition and Enlightenment science, and unfortunately spends most of its time looking backward. The theory that dominates is humorism, the belief that health depends on balancing four bodily fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Feel feverish? You have too much blood. The cure? Remove some. Feel sluggish? Too much phlegm. The cure? Purge it out. The system is elegant, ancient, and completely wrong, but it will take decades more to fully dislodge. Bloodletting is the go-to treatment for nearly everything. Headache? Bloodletting. Fever? Bloodletting. Infection? You guessed it. Physicians open veins with lancets, collecting the blood in bowls, measuring it carefully. They have tables showing how much blood to take for various conditions. So much for inflammation, so much for apoplexy. The patient grows pale, weaker, worse. But the theory must be correct, so the physician assumes he hasn't taken enough yet. Leeches provide a gentler alternative, applied to specific areas to draw blood locally. The medicinal leech, Hirudo medicinalis, gets farmed for this purpose, and legitimate medical suppliers maintain leech ponds. The practice has one small advantage. Leech saliva contains an anticoagulant and a mild anesthetic, so the bite actually doesn't hurt much and the wound bleeds freely. This is presented as proof the treatment works. The fact that patients don't actually get better is inconvenient but ignorable. Purging and vomiting come next in the hierarchy of treatments. If the humors are imbalanced internally, expel them from all available exits. Emetics cause vomiting. Antimony compounds are popular, as is ipecac. Purgatives cause diarrhea. Calomel, mercury chloride, is the favorite, along with senna, jalap, and various other vegetable preparations. Patients spend miserable hours on close stools, evacuating what little nutrition they have, losing fluids, weakening further. Calomel deserves special mention. This mercury compound is prescribed for nearly everything: syphilis, typhoid, parasites, cholesterol, dental hygiene, yes really, and general health maintenance. It causes excessive salivation, mouth ulcers, tooth loss, and mercury poisoning. Long-term use damages kidneys, brain, and nervous system. But it makes parasites easier to see in the stool because you're examining your stool, which is Georgian medicine's favorite hobby, so physicians consider it effective. The apothecary is where most people go for treatment, meeting being too expensive for regular consultation. Apothecaries sell pre-made remedies and make custom preparations. Their shops smell of herbs, minerals, and mystery. Shelves hold labeled jars, theriac, mithridatium, various elixirs and spirits with grand Latin names. The contents vary from genuinely helpful to actively harmful to completely inert. Patent medicines are the period's snake oil, sold with promises and testimonials, regulated not at all. Anderson Scott's pills promise to cure literally everything. Daffy's elixir claims to remedy all stomach ailments. Godfrey's cordial, an opium preparation given to fussy babies, probably does quiet them down. Permanently, in some cases, though parents don't always make the connection. The advertising is shameless. One cure promises to restore lost manhood, grow hair, and improve digestion, which is quite a trifecta.
Opium is legal, available, and widely used. Laudanum, opium dissolved in alcohol, sits on apothecary shelves beside cough syrups and headache powders. It genuinely does relieve pain, suppress coughs, and stop diarrhea. It also causes addiction, though the concept isn't well understood. People take their tonic daily, increase the dose when it stops working, and eventually can't function without it. Society views this as a character weakness, not a medical condition. Childbirth is one of the period's greatest dangers. Women labor at home, attended by midwives or, increasingly among the wealthy, male physicians. The mortality rate is horrific. Puerperal fever kills mothers days after successful deliveries. Obstructed labor can last for days. Before forceps and cesarean sections become safer, there's often nothing to do but wait and pray. Babies die too, sometimes in the birth canal, sometimes in their first hours. So often that parents emotionally guard themselves against attachment in early infancy. Midwives bring experience but little formal training. Some are skilled, having learned through apprenticeship and delivered hundreds of babies. Others are elderly women whose main qualification is having given birth themselves. They bring herbs to speed labor, rags to clean the baby, and prayers to ward off evil. The best midwives know when to call for help. The worst insist they can handle anything and prove disastrously wrong. Male physicians, or man midwives, are controversial but increasingly popular among those who can afford them. They bring forceps, a new invention that can save babies in obstructed labor, or crash skills in hopeless cases to save the mother. They bring medical knowledge, though much of it is theoretical rather than practical. They also bring diseases from other patients, because hand-washing between cases isn't standard practice yet. Joke 2. The Georgian physician's motto is, first, do harm, then defend your reasoning with classical references. Hospitals exist but are places of last resort. St. Bartholomew's, Guy's, St. Thomas's. These ancient institutions serve the poor who have nowhere else to go. The wards are crowded, multiple patients per bed, the air thick with fever and death. Surgeons practice there, learning on charity cases. Medical students observe, taking notes while patients suffer. Survival rates are abysmal, infection is rampant, and hospital fever, what we'd recognize as various contagious diseases, sweeps through regularly. Surgery is butchery without anesthesia. The patient is held down by strong assistants while the surgeon works as fast as humanly possible. Speed is the only mercy available. A skilled surgeon can amputate a leg in under a minute, saw through bone, tie off arteries, fold skin over the stump, done. The patient screams throughout, biting on leather, gripping the chair arms. Many die of shock during the operation. Many more die of infection afterward. Amputation is common because infection can't be controlled. A broken bone that pierces skin, a battlefield wound, gangrene from frostbite, all lead to the surgeon's saw. Post-operative care involves bandaging the stump and hoping. If fever sets in, there's little to be done. More purging and bloodletting, perhaps, weakening the patient further, prayer, waiting. Eventually, either recovery or death, with death winning more often.
Dentistry is worse than surgery because it's not even respected as a medical field. Barbers extract teeth using pliers and brute strength. The patient sits in a chair, head braced, while the dentist rocks the tooth back and forth until it comes free, hopefully intact, sometimes breaking off at the root. Infections follow frequently, abscesses form, whole jaws can become diseased. The pain is extraordinary, but you simply live with it until extraction becomes necessary. False teeth are for the wealthy and come from disturbing sources. Ivory yellows and smells bad. Porcelain is better, but expensive. Human teeth are best. They look natural, function well, and can be carved to fit. Where do human teeth come from? Corpses primarily. Grave robbers sell them. Dentists buy them. After major battles, tooth hunters scour the fields, pulling teeth from dead soldiers. Waterloo teeth become a brand name after 1815, advertising freshness. Mental illness is poorly understood and brutally treated. The period distinguishes between melancholy, depression, mania, violent insanity, and idiocy, intellectual disability. But the treatments rarely vary. The mad are locked away, sometimes at home in attics, sometimes in private madhouses, sometimes in public institutions like Bedlam, which charges admission for visitors to gawk at the inmates like a human zoo. Private madhouses are businesses, profit-driven and barely regulated. Families pay to have inconvenient relatives confined. Sometimes the person is genuinely insane. Sometimes they're just difficult, a wife who won't obey, a son who drinks, an elderly parent with dementia.
Once confined, escape is nearly impossible. The mad housekeeper has every incentive to keep paying patients, and no incentive to cure them. Treatment for madness involves restraint, cold baths, purging, bloodletting, and rotation. Patients are strapped into chairs that spin rapidly, the theory being that centrifugal force will redistribute the humors. They're dunked in cold water repeatedly, shock therapy before electricity. They're kept in darkness or in bright light or in silence, depending on which theory the physician favors. They're whipped to drive out devils or chained to walls to prevent violence. None of it works. Much of it worsens the condition. King George III's madness makes mental illness a topic of public fascination and royal inconvenience. His episodes involve rapid speech, insomnia, paranoia, and physical symptoms. Modern medicine suspects porphyria, a genetic metabolic disorder. Georgian medicine tries everything: blistering, bleeding, purging, the strait waistcoat, isolation from family. Nothing helps. The king recovers spontaneously, relapses, recovers, relapses, finally descends into permanent madness. His doctors publish careful accounts, none admitting they had no idea what they were doing. Smallpox is the period's great killer, covering bodies with pustules, leaving survivors scarred and sometimes blind. Inoculation arrives from the Ottoman Empire in the 1720s, thanks to Lady Mary Wortley Montagu. The process involves taking matter from a smallpox pustule and introducing it into a scratch on a healthy person's arm. Usually, they get a mild case and lifetime immunity. Sometimes they get a severe case and die, but the odds are better than natural infection.
The medical establishment resists inoculation for years. It's foreign, it's dangerous, it's not in the classical texts. The Royal Society eventually endorses it. The wealthy adopt it. Inoculation houses open, offering the procedure in controlled settings. But it's crude. You can still spread disease during your mild case, and you feel genuinely sick for days. Still, it saves thousands of lives and paves the way for vaccination. Edward Jenner's vaccination, using cowpox to prevent smallpox, arrives in 1796, right at the period's end. It's safer than inoculation, doesn't make you infectious, and actually works. The news spreads rapidly. Within years, vaccination becomes common. It's one of Georgian medicine's genuine triumphs, a moment when observation and experimentation lead to a real cure. Syphilis ravages bodies and ruins lives, spreading through sexual contact and congenitally from mother to child. The mercury cure is worse than useless. It causes horrific symptoms without stopping the disease. A night with Venus, a lifetime with Mercury, goes the saying. Patients take mercury for years, their mouths filling with ulcers, teeth falling out, hands trembling. The disease progresses anyway. Rashes, lesions, eventually attacking the heart, brain, and nervous system. The social stigma of syphilis is enormous. It's the great pox, as opposed to smallpox, and everyone knows what having it means. Fashionable society pretends certain things don't exist, while knowing perfectly well they do. The pox explains why some lords wear heavy powder, covering lesions, why certain ladies retire to the country to hide symptoms, why some children seem slow, congenital syphilis affecting the brain. Tuberculosis, or consumption, kills more people than any other disease, but does so slowly, almost romantically. The patient grows pale, thin, coughs delicately into handkerchiefs that bloom with blood. Poets and artists consume beautifully, wasting away while creating masterpieces. The reality is less poetic. Fever, night sweats, coughing fits that crack ribs, lungs slowly drowning in fluid. There is no cure. Fresh air and rest might help. Usually they don't. The recommended treatment for consumption is to move to a better climate. The seaside for air, the mountains for altitude. Entire towns become health resorts, catering to invalids seeking cures. Bath attracts those wanting to take the waters.
Brighton becomes fashionable after the Prince Regent builds the royal pavilion there. The wealthy winter in Italy, seeking sunshine. None of it cures tuberculosis, but hope is itself a commodity. Typhus, typhoid, cholera, dysentery. The Georgian period has no shortage of diseases spread by filth and crowding. They flourish in the rookeries, the workhouses, the prisons, anywhere poverty concentrates people without sanitation. The symptoms vary, but all involve fever, weakness, and frequently death. The treatment is the usual: bloodletting, purging, prayer. The diseases burn through populations like fire through dry grass, then recede until the next outbreak. Children's diseases carry off huge numbers before age 5. Measles, scarlet fever, whooping cough, diphtheria, each one deadly, none preventable. Parents have many children expecting to lose several. The emotional calculation is brutal. Invest too much love, and every death destroys you. Invest too little, and you're a monster. Most parents navigate a middle course, loving their children, but holding something back, just in case.
Accidents and injuries bring their own horrors. A broken bone that doesn't set properly means a lifetime of pain and disability. A burn that gets infected turns into sepsis. A workplace accident, falling from scaffolding, getting caught in machinery, being trampled by horses, can kill instantly or slowly. There's no workers' compensation, no disability support, no safety regulations. You heal or you don't, work or starve, survive or become a cautionary tale. Folk remedies persist alongside official medicine, sometimes more effective, often more harmless. Willow bark tea for pain. It contains salicylic acid, aspirin's precursor. Honey for wounds, actually does have antibacterial properties. Moldy bread applied to infections. Penicillin, centuries early, though no one knows why it sometimes works. Herbal teas for stomach complaints, poultices for bruises, specific prayers for specific ailments. The folk tradition carries genuine wisdom mixed with superstition. Women's health is mysterious to male physicians and barely discussed in polite society. Menstruation is the monthlies or courses, spoken of obliquely if at all. Period pain is expected, stoically endured. Heavy bleeding that indicates problems goes untreated because examining women internally is considered indecent. Menopause makes women hysterical, requiring the usual treatments: rest, bloodletting, perhaps having their ovaries removed if a surgeon gets enthusiastic. Hysteria is diagnosed in women constantly, the wandering womb supposedly causing all manner of symptoms from anxiety to seizures. Treatment involves everything from mild exercise to marriage. Seriously, physicians prescribe marriage as a cure for hysteria. The vibrator will eventually be invented, partly to treat hysteria, physicians growing tired of manually stimulating patients to hysterical paroxysm. But that's later Victorian, not quite Georgian yet. The diet-disease connection is dimly understood. Sailors get scurvy on long voyages, their gums bleeding, teeth falling out, old wounds reopening. The cure, citrus fruit, is discovered by trial and error, not theory. The British Navy starts issuing lime juice in 1795, leading to sailors being called limeys. Rickets, caused by vitamin D deficiency, affects children in sunless slums. Pellagra, from niacin deficiency, plagues the poor, eating mostly corn. But vitamins won't be discovered for another century. Poisoning is easy and common, often accidental. Lead in water pipes, lead in wine sweeteners, lead in cosmetics. The metal accumulates in bodies, causing everything from stomach pain to madness. Mercury from medicines. Arsenic from wallpaper dyes, from rat poison, from green dress fabrics. Patients treated for one ailment develop symptoms of poisoning, which are treated with more toxic medicines, in a vicious circle. Quack cures proliferate because real medicine is so ineffective that charlatans don't look much worse. Magnetic treatments promise to realign your animal magnetism. Electric shock therapy, using actual electric eels at first, then primitive batteries, claims to cure paralysis. Phrenology reads personality from skull bumps. Mesmerism puts you in trances to heal your spirit.
Patent medicines make wild claims because there's no regulation requiring truth in advertising. Dr. James' fever powder becomes wildly popular, prescribed by real physicians, sold by apothecaries, containing antimony that causes violent vomiting and possibly arsenic. Patients who survive credit the powder. Those who die are considered too far gone for even this miracle cure to help. The manufacturer becomes wealthy. The physician who invented it is knighted. The poison keeps selling for decades.
The morning brings news of a hanging at Tyburn, and the streets fill with people heading west to watch. Execution Day is a public holiday. Business is closing so everyone can attend the spectacle. The condemned ride in carts from Newgate Prison, crowds lining the route, some jeering, some praying, vendors selling execution broadsheets that detail the criminal's life and supposed last words, often written before the criminal has actually spoken them. Georgian justice operates on terror. The Bloody Code lists over 200 capital offenses by 1800, crimes ranging from murder to stealing a handkerchief worth more than a shilling. The theory is that harsh, certain punishment deters crime. The practice is that juries refuse to convict for minor offenses, judges commute sentences, and criminals gamble that they won't be caught. The system is spectacle and severity wrapped around a core of actual ineffectiveness. Let's start with how you become a criminal. Poverty is the primary pathway. Steal bread because your children are starving and you've committed theft. Poach a rabbit from the Lord's estate to feed your family, and you've committed a capital crime. Forge a banknote to buy medicine, and you've earned a hanging. The law protects property absolutely, life conditionally. London streets swarm with crime of every variety. Pickpockets work crowds, their hands quick and clever, lifting purses, watches, handkerchiefs. They train young. Children make excellent thieves, small and inconspicuous. Fagin's gang in Oliver Twist isn't Victorian fiction, but Georgian reality. Boys learn the trade, graduating from handkerchiefs to more ambitious thefts until they're caught or become successful enough to run their own operations. Footpads are street robbers, waiting in dark alleys or poorly lit squares to relieve passers-by of valuables. The threat of violence is usually enough, a knife pressed to ribs, a cudgel shown meaningfully. Sometimes violence is necessary and bodies are found at dawn, robbed and beaten, occasionally murdered. The watch is supposed to prevent this, but the watch consists of elderly men with lanterns who are easy to avoid. Highwaymen are romantic in fiction, terrifying in reality. They stop coaches on the roads outside London, demanding, "Stand and deliver." Dick Turpin and his ilk are glamorized later, but the truth is grittier. Desperate men with pistols, taking risks for uncertain rewards, usually caught and hanged within a few years. Some were former soldiers, trained in violence, unable to settle into peacetime poverty. Others were adventurers, gamblers who chose crime over slow starvation. Burglary requires more planning. You watch a house, learn its rhythms, wait for the family to attend the theater or a ball. Break in through a window, gather valuables, plate, jewelry, portable goods, and disappear before dawn. Servants are sometimes accomplices, providing information or leaving doors unlocked for a share of the proceeds. More often, they're victims too, blamed for not preventing what they couldn't have stopped. Receiving stolen goods is an industry unto itself. Fences buy from thieves and sell to the public, laundering stolen goods back into circulation. Jonathan Wild becomes famous, or infamous, by running both sides of the equation, organizing thieves, then selling their locations to authorities for reward money while fencing their goods for profit. He's eventually hanged himself, which surprises absolutely nobody, except possibly Wild. Counterfeiting is rampant because money is complicated. Coins are clipped, shaving edges off to collect precious metal, or forged outright. Banknotes are copied, the quality varying from obvious fakes to works of art.
The Bank of England constantly battles counterfeiters, improving its printing techniques, but determined forgers keep pace. The penalty is death, hanged, or burned, depending on gender.
Fraud takes countless forms. Confidence men sell fake shares in non-existent ventures. Ladies of fashion marry wealthy men, then disappear with their valuables. Fortune tellers read fortunes while accomplices search the client's coat. False identities are easy to maintain in a world without photographs or databases. Become whoever you claim to be, as long as you can maintain the performance. Smuggling is barely considered crime by many. The government imposes high tariffs on tea, spirits, tobacco, silk, lace, anything imported and desirable. Smugglers provide the same goods cheaper, no tax included. Coastal communities depend on smuggling for income. Excise men try to stop it, but are outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Battles occasionally erupt, but mostly it's cat and mouse, with the mouse often winning. Prostitution is technically illegal, but practically unavoidable. Women sell sex for survival, from streetwalkers in dark alleys to courtesans entertaining the wealthy. The gradations are infinite. Covent Garden has elegant brothels with expensive girls. Wapping has sailors' taverns where women work for pennies. Disease is rampant, violence common, legal protection non-existent. Get pregnant and you're on your own. Get robbed and the law doesn't care. Catching criminals depends partly on the Bow Street Runners, established mid-century as London's first professional police force. These thief-cakers are paid by rewards, so much for recovering stolen goods, so much for catching criminals. The system encourages corruption. Some runners are honest. Others take bribes to lose evidence or arrest convenient scapegoats. Real policing won't arrive until the Metropolitan Police in 1829. Trials are swift and public. The accused has no right to counsel in most cases, must defend themselves against prosecutors who are often victims or their representatives. Evidence standards are low. 2 witnesses might suffice for conviction, even if they're obviously lying. The accused can call witnesses too, but character witnesses are all they usually have. No one saw them not commit the crime. Juries are male property owners, their biases shaping verdicts. A gentleman accused of fraud might be acquitted, despite evidence, because gentlemen don't do such things, except they clearly do. A poor man accused of theft might hang on flimsy evidence because poor men are obviously prone to crime. The wealthy hire lawyers who know the system's loopholes. The poor rely on mercy and usually don't receive it. Sentencing depends on the judge's discretion, the crime's severity, the criminal's history, and sometimes just the judge's mood. Death, transportation, imprisonment, whipping, the pillory. Each punishment carries its own terrors. The judge wears black cloth when pronouncing death sentences, adding solemnity to what's become routine. Some judges weep, others see it as pest control. Newgate Prison is London's main jail, a fortress of misery where inmates await trial or execution. Conditions are medieval. Dark cells, no sanitation, prisoners chained to walls, jail fever or typhus spreading through the crowded spaces. The wealthy can pay for better accommodations. The master's side has private rooms, food, visitors. The poor are thrown into communal dungeons and left to survive however they can. Prison costs money, even though you're not there voluntarily. Jailers charge for everything: admission, better cells, removal of chains, food, blankets, candles. Enter Newgate without funds, and you enter hell. Fellow prisoners might help or might rob you. Some die before their trials, disease or despair or violence claiming them. The bodies are buried in the prison yard, unmarked, forgotten. Debtors' prisons are their own special nightmare. Owe money you can't pay, and your creditor can have you imprisoned until the debt is satisfied. But you can't earn money in prison, so the debt only grows with the fees the prison charges.
Families bring food, visitors bring charity, but many debtors languish for years. Some die in prison, some go mad. Children are born in debtors' prisons, growing up behind bars because their parents owed money. The Marshalsea, the Fleet, King's Bench, these debtors' prisons become communities unto themselves. Inmates organize themselves, creating hierarchies, rules, entertainments. Some prisons allow day release. You can leave to work, must return by nightfall. Others are strict confinement. Charles Dickens's father spent time in the Marshalsea for debt, an experience that shaped Dickens's entire worldview and much of his fiction. Transportation becomes the alternative to execution for many criminals, especially after American independence closes that destination in 1776. Criminals are sentenced to 7 years, 14 years, or life, shipped to Australia after 1788 to clear land, build infrastructure, survive. The voyage is brutal, months at sea, prison hulks serving as holding cells, disease, despair. Australia is presented as opportunity, a fresh start. The reality is a penal colony, hard labor, and little chance of return. Public executions at Tyburn, later moving to Newgate itself, are theatrical productions. The condemned wear their best clothes or are provided white caps and gowns. They ride in carts, accompanied by chaplains praying for their souls. The crowd is enormous, sometimes 50,000 people, treating it as a festival. Vendors sell gin, pies, pamphlets. Pickpockets work the crowd, occasionally getting caught and joining the hanged in cosmic irony. The gallows at Tyburn are permanent structures, the triple tree, capable of hanging 24 people simultaneously. The procedure is crude, no trapdoor, no broken neck, just slow strangulation as you're hanged from a cart that's driven away. You kick and dance as you choke, the Tyburn jig, while the crowd watches. Friends might pull your legs to speed death. Your body might be cut down after death and sold to anatomists, a final indignity. Some criminals achieve fame. Jack Sheppard escapes from Newgate repeatedly, becoming a folk hero, his final capture and execution drawing massive crowds. 16-String Jack, a highwayman named for his decorative breeches, jokes at his execution. Anne Bonny and Mary Read, pirates, escape hanging by claiming pregnancy. Juries won't execute pregnant women, preferring to wait until after birth. The gallows creates celebrities. The condemned man requested a last meal at a restaurant that didn't exist yet. He was told, "We don't serve futuristic cuisine here." He replied, "That's fine, I don't have much of a future anyway." The guard didn't laugh. Guards never did. Corporal punishment handles lesser crimes. Whipping at the cart's tail means being tied to a cart and flogged while it slowly circles the neighborhood, your punishment displayed publicly. The crowd sometimes sympathizes, sometimes jeers. The number of lashes depends on the crime. 39 is common, a biblical number, enough to scar, but not kill, usually. The pillory is public humiliation made physical. The criminal stands with head and hands locked in wooden stocks while the crowd throws whatever they have: rotten vegetables, dead animals, stones, excrement. The punishment can be light if the crowd approves of you. Cheaters and fraud victims get sympathy. It can be deadly if they don't. Men pilloried for sodomy are sometimes killed by the mob. You stand for hours, helpless, at the mercy of strangers' judgment. Branding marks criminals permanently. Thieves are branded on the thumb with T, making future crimes impossible to deny. Murderers granted benefit of clergy, a legal fiction where reading a Bible verse proves you're a clergyman and thus subject to church rather than civil law, are branded M on the thumb. The burn scars over but never fully fades, a permanent record of your crime. Children face the same justice as adults. A 10-year-old hangs for stealing. A 7-year-old is transported for arson. The law makes few allowances for age. Some juries refuse to convict children, judges commute sentences, but plenty of children die on the gallows or in the hulks waiting for transport ships. Society views them as small adults, capable of evil, deserving punishment. Women criminals face additional scrutiny. Theft is expected. Women are weak, easily led astray. But violence from women, especially against men or children, is considered unnatural, monstrous. Women who murder are viragos, masculine aberrations. Women who kill children face particular horror. Infanticide by desperate mothers is common but always prosecuted harshly when discovered. The death of a husband makes a wife immediately suspect. Benefit of clergy, that odd legal loophole, persists throughout the period. Originally for actual clergy, it evolved into a way to avoid hanging for first-time offenders of certain crimes. Prove you can read by reciting Psalm 51, the neck verse, so-called for saving your neck, and your death sentence becomes branding and release. Literacy thus becomes literally life-saving, though the verse is so widely memorized that illiterate criminals recite it from memory. Pardons are bought and sold. The wealthy convicted of capital crimes buy pardons through connections, bribes, or simply being useful to someone powerful. Some pardons are conditional. You can avoid hanging if you join the army or the navy, which are always desperate for men. Some condemned are pardoned at the last moment, standing on the gallows with the noose around their necks, reprieved and grateful. The Bloody Code itself is controversial. Reformers argue that harsh punishment doesn't deter crime, that juries refuse to convict when the penalty seems disproportionate, that mercy would work better than terror. Conservatives insist that only fear keeps the masses in line, that reducing penalties would unleash chaos. Gradually, throughout the period, capital crimes are reduced. By 1830, only murder truly, reliably leads to execution.
Prisons themselves are slowly, grudgingly reformed. John Howard tours prisons across Britain and Europe, publishing accounts of the horrors he finds, advocating for sanitation, separation of prisoners, productive labor. His work influences the prison reform movement. Elizabeth Fry visits Newgate, brings female prisoners supplies, teaches them skills, advocates for their humanity. Progress is glacial, but real. Workhouses blend punishment and charity in a grim mixture. The able-bodied poor can enter workhouses, receiving food and shelter in exchange for hard labor, oakum picking, unraveling old rope, stone breaking, other make-work designed to be unpleasant enough that people only resort to it desperately. Families are separated. Conditions are deliberately harsh, better than starving, worse than working, designed to encourage people to find employment elsewhere. Debtors' prison reform comes slowly. The injustice of imprisoning people for debt they can't pay because you've imprisoned them is obvious, but creditors want leverage. Gradually, laws change. Smaller debts stop being imprisonable. Procedures are established for bankruptcy. But throughout the Georgian period, thousands languish behind bars simply for being poor, a crime society punishes more harshly than many actual crimes. The legal system's class bias is naked and unapologetic. Property crime is capital. Crimes against people often aren't. Steal a horse, hang. Beat your wife, get a warning. Poach a deer, transportation. Embezzle a fortune through clever accounting, society shrugs. The law protects the property of those who have it from those who don't, maintaining order through fear. Yet crime persists because desperation persists. Poverty drives people to risk everything for bread. Opportunity tempts. Gin blurs judgment. Some are career criminals, calculating risks, enjoying the game. Others are circumstantial, one bad choice cascading into catastrophe. The gallows take them all indiscriminately, the state grinding through humans like a mill grinding grain. We'll leave this section at the gallows itself, the condemned swaying in the wind, the crowd dispersing to pubs and homes, the bodies eventually cut down and carried away. Justice, Georgian style, swift, public, severe,
and ultimately ineffective at preventing the conditions that created crime in the first place. Tomorrow we'll visit an even darker room, where death itself becomes commerce, where the dead are feared and fetishized in equal measure, where mourning is theater and memento mori sit on mantelpieces alongside the family china. The house wears black crepe like armor against judgment. Death has visited, and the survivors must perform grief according to strict rules or face social condemnation worse than bereavement itself. Welcome to Georgian mourning, where sorrow is regimented, death is commodified, and the line between honoring the dead and exploiting them is whispered about, but rarely drawn clearly. A death at home is common. Most people die in their beds, attended by family, physician if affordable, clergy if available. The moment of death is watched for. The dying person might rally, offering last words, blessing children, settling affairs, or they might simply slip away, breath stopping, eyes glazing, the spirit departing in silence. Someone closes the eyes, ties the jaw shut with a cloth to prevent it gaping, straightens the limbs before rigor mortis sets in.
The body remains at home for several days before burial, kept in the coolest room, the process of decomposition slowly beginning. In winter, this is manageable. In summer, it's less pleasant. Someone sits with the body constantly, both respect for the deceased and practical prevention of rats. Candles burn. Windows are opened at night to let the soul escape, closed during day to keep evil spirits out. Mirrors are covered or turned to the wall, because seeing your reflection while a corpse is present is unlucky. Mourning dress is elaborate, expensive, and required. Women wear full black for at least a year, longer for husbands, parents, children. The fabric must be bombazine or crepe, dull and heavy. Jewelry must be jet or black enamel. Handkerchiefs must have black borders. Gradually, after months, half mourning allows gray, purple, white. The rules are complex, varying by relationship and gender. Men have it easier. A black armband, black gloves, black hatband. But everyone must show grief, visibly, consistently. Mourning jewelry becomes hugely popular. Rings contain locks of the deceased's hair, woven into patterns. Brooches display hair under glass. Lockets hold miniature portraits. Some pieces are genuinely touching, love frozen in golden hair. Others are macabre to modern eyes, coffin-shaped brooches, skeleton motifs, skulls grinning from rings. Memento mori, remember you will die, is both threat and comfort. Hairwork is an entire industry. Professional hairworkers create intricate designs from human hair, wreaths, flowers, landscapes. A mother's hair braided with her child's, a widow's worked into her wedding ring, siblings' hair combined in a bracelet. The hair doesn't decay like flowers, making it a permanent memorial. The fashion will peak in Victorian times, but has strong Georgian roots. Mourning extends beyond clothes and jewelry to behavior. Widows withdraw from society, seeing only close family for months. They can't attend entertainments. No balls, no theater, no concerts. They shouldn't laugh loudly or show joy. Children are dressed in black, taught to be somber, reminded constantly of their loss. The entire household wears mourning, even servants getting black armbands at minimum. The funeral itself is a production. The wealthy hire professional undertakers who provide everything: coffin, hearse, mutes, paid mourners who stand silently outside the house, black-clad attendants, horses with black plumes. The coffin might be lead-lined if the deceased is important, slowing decomposition, allowing time for distant relatives to arrive. The poor are buried in simple wood, quickly, with minimal ceremony. Coffins vary wildly in quality and price.
The cheapest are rough pine boxes, barely fitted to the body. The expensive are mahogany or oak, brass-handled, silk-lined, more furniture than container. Some coffins have viewing windows over the face, so mourners can see the deceased one last time. Some have built-in speaking tubes running to the surface, a precaution against being buried alive, a fear that haunts the period.
Being buried alive is a genuine terror. Stories circulate of people waking in coffins, scratch marks found on lids when graves are reopened. A few inventors patent safety coffins, with bells above ground connected to the coffin by string. Ring if you wake up, someone will dig you out. These are rarely used, but widely discussed. The fear is so pervasive that some wealthy people specify waiting periods before burial, or even request partial embalming to ensure death is certain. The funeral procession moves slowly through streets, the hearse drawn by black horses, mourners walking behind in order of relationship. Strangers remove their hats as it passes, shops close their shutters. The spectacle announces death, but also social status. Count the carriages, estimate the cost, judge the family's standing. A pauper's funeral is a quick affair, the body collected by the parish, buried in a communal grave with others, no marker, no ceremony worth mentioning. Burial happens in churchyards, urban graveyards rapidly filling beyond capacity. Bodies are buried in layers, older graves dug up to make room for new ones. The smell in summer is overwhelming. Coffins sometimes collapse into older graves below. Bones surface during digging. The sexton becomes expert at Tetris with corpses, fitting as many as possible into available space. Graveyards are noisy, crowded places, not the quiet cemeteries of later times. Paths cross them, people use them as shortcuts. Children play between the headstones. Beggars sleep against the walls. Animals graze. Many churchyards rent out grass rights, cattle and sheep keeping the weeds down. The dead and living coexist in uncomfortable proximity. Resurrectionists, body snatchers, haunt the graveyards at night, digging up fresh burials to sell to anatomy schools. Medical education requires corpses. The law provides few, so the market fills the gap. Families hire guards, build iron cages around graves, set traps. Some graveyards install watchtowers where guards keep vigil. The theft usually happens within days of burial, before decomposition makes the body useless for teaching. The resurrectionists work in teams, one digging, others watching for police or angry relatives. They dig down to the head of the coffin, break it open, loop a rope around the body, pull it out. Fill the grave quickly, scatter the dirt, disappear before dawn. The body goes to an anatomy school. The payment is divided. Everyone pretends not to know where corpses come from. Medical students dissect their cadavers without asking questions. Some resurrectionists graduate to murder when supply can't meet demand. Burke and Hare in Edinburgh, slightly after our period, kills 16 people, selling the bodies to Dr. Knox. They're not the first or only ones to realize that creating corpses is more efficient than stealing them. The trade is grim but profitable, driven by the gap between what medicine needs and what law allows. Anatomists walk a moral tightrope, needing bodies to teach, but acquiring them through theft or worse. Some are genuinely ethical, taking only executed criminals, as the law allows. Others look away when asked where their specimens originate. A few are complicit, encouraging the trade through generous payments. The public knows and is horrified, but also wants doctors trained. The contradiction never quite resolves. Ghost stories and supernatural beliefs flourish in an age obsessed with death. Every manor has a ghost, usually a wronged woman in white.
Crossroads are dangerous because that's where suicides are buried, unable to rest. Corpse candles, mysterious lights, appear before deaths.
Banshees wail. Black dogs herald doom. The boundary between living and dead feels thin, permeable, requiring constant vigilance. Spiritualism hasn't quite arrived yet. That's more Victorian. But seances and spirit communication are beginning. Table-turning parties entertain the curious. Mesmerists claim to contact the dead. Mediums offer messages from beyond, some sincere, most fraudulent. The grieving are desperate for contact, making them easy marks. The line between comfort and exploitation is crossed constantly. Folk beliefs about death persist alongside Christian doctrine. Stopping clocks when someone dies so their spirit doesn't get trapped, covering mirrors so the soul doesn't get caught in reflection, opening windows to let spirits out, putting coins on eyes, payment for Charon, the ferryman of the dead, a pagan tradition surviving Christian centuries. These practices coexist, nobody quite sure which ones work, but unwilling to risk omitting any. Child death is tragically common, and the mourning reflects this awful frequency. Infant and child mortality rates mean most families lose children. Some parents become practiced at grief, developing emotional armor. Others break under repeated losses. Tiny coffins are made in batches. Graveyards have children's sections, small stones marking small lives. The language of comfort is both more and less adequate. God needed another angel provides meaning but doesn't ease pain. Mourning portraiture captures the dead for memory. An artist is summoned to paint the deceased, either on the deathbed or arranged to look peaceful. Sometimes the corpse is propped up, eyes painted open on closed lids to simulate life. These portraits hang in homes, the dead watching over the living. Children who died young are sometimes painted with siblings, the dead child identifiable by stillness, closed eyes, or slightly blurred features. Memorial cards are distributed at funerals, printed with the deceased's name, dates, sometimes a verse or moral warning. Remember death appears frequently. As I am now, so you must be, reminds the living of their mortality. The cards are collected, kept in Bibles, creating a paper memorial alongside the graveyard stone. Some families have dozens, testament to how often death visited. Funeral feasts follow burial, the mourners gathering to eat, drink, share stories. The food is provided by the deceased's estate, one final hosting duty. Beer and wine flow freely. The mood gradually lightens from somber to celebratory as the living reassure themselves they're still alive. It's wake in the modern sense, both honoring the dead and pushing them gently toward the past. The expense of proper mourning can bankrupt families. Funeral costs, mourning clothes for everyone, the feast, the gravestone, it adds up terrifyingly fast. Some families go into debt to bury relatives properly. The alternative, a pauper's burial, is shameful, suggesting you couldn't care for your own. Pride and poverty clash at the graveside. Undertakers become wealthy through death, building businesses that serve every level of society. The best offer elegant coffins, multiple coaches, professional mourners, silk, brass, grandeur. The budget services provide basic boxes and quick burial. Competition is fierce. Undertakers cultivate relationships with clergy, physicians, anyone who knows about deaths early. Speed matters. Approach the family fast. Secure the business before competitors arrive.
Some undertakers are genuinely compassionate, helping families navigate grief and logistics. Others are predatory, pressuring grieving relatives to spend more than they can afford, arguing that anything less dishonors the deceased. The industry's reputation is mixed, necessary but slightly disreputable, providing essential services while profiting from tragedy. Gravestone design reflects status and sentiment. The wealthy erect monuments, obelisks, angels, elaborate structures with epitaphs in Latin. The middling get modest stones with English verses. The poor get wooden markers that rot away within decades, their names lost.
Walking Georgian graveyards, you can read social hierarchy in stone, the tall monuments clustering in prime spots, smaller stones spreading outward, eventually giving way to unmarked graves. Epitaphs range from solemn to bizarre. "Here lies John Smith, who lived and died," is minimal but factual. "She was," followed by lengthy virtue catalogues, borders on hagiography. Some are darkly humorous. "Here I lie beside the chancel door. Here I lie because I'm poor. The further in, the more you pay. Here I lie as warm as they." Others warn the living. "Stop, reader, as you pass by. As you are now, so once was I. As I am now, so shall you be. Therefore prepare to follow me." Memorial services happen at intervals, a week after burial, a month, a year. Anniversary mourning continues for years, the family returning to church, wearing black again, remembering publicly. For some, mourning becomes identity. Widows wear black so long they're defined by loss. Queen Victoria will make this famous later, mourning Albert for 40 years, but Georgian widows pave the way. The cult of sensibility encourages emotional display during mourning. Fainting at funerals is almost expected for women. Men should weep, but quietly, showing feeling without losing control. Grief becomes performance, genuine emotion mixed with social expectation. Those who don't mourn visibly enough face criticism. Perhaps they didn't truly love the deceased. Perhaps they're cold-hearted. Perhaps they're already looking toward remarriage with unseemly haste. Remarriage has its own rules. Widowers can remarry relatively quickly. A year is respectable, 6 months acceptable if there are children needing a mother. Widows must wait longer, 2 years minimum, longer for younger widows who might be suspected of fortune hunting. A widow's remarriage means shedding mourning clothes, resuming social life, often negotiating with adult children who view a stepfather as threat to their inheritance. Cemeteries as we know them, landscaped, park-like spaces, begin developing late in the Georgian period. Kensal Green Cemetery opens in 1833, just after our period ends, but the movement starts now. Reformers argue that urban churchyards are unhealthy, overcrowded, disrespectful. New cemeteries offer space, peace, beauty. They'll eventually become Victorians' great necropolis projects, but the seeds are Georgian. Meanwhile, anatomists aren't the only ones commercializing death. Relics from famous executions become collectibles. Pieces of the rope that hanged a notorious criminal sell as souvenirs. Wood from the gallows is carved into snuff boxes. The macabre and the mercantile meet in ways that should shock, but don't. Death is simply too common to maintain reverence consistently. Plague pits from earlier centuries are being built over as London expands, the dead's inconvenient location buried under progress. Foundations for new buildings sometimes uncover mass graves, the bones unceremoniously relocated or just built over. The past literally underlies the present, sepulchral foundations supporting Georgian prosperity. Death in childbirth deserves special mention. It kills so many women that it shapes the female experience. Every pregnancy carries mortality risk. Women write farewell letters before labor begins, just in case. Husbands prepare for possible widowerhood. Surviving childbirth is cause for genuine celebration, dodging death one more time. The women who die leave motherless children, bereft husbands, households in chaos. Remarriage follows quickly out of necessity, stepmothers becoming common. Elderly deaths are gentler socially. They had a good innings, their time was due, nature taking its course. Young deaths are tragic, potential unfulfilled, families devastated, the unfairness of it all. Children dying before parents inverts natural order, causing particular grief. The old bury the young too often, graves filling with promise and youth. The period's famous deaths become public events. Dr. Johnson's death in 1784 is national news, his final words recorded, his funeral attended by admirers. Writers, politicians, aristocrats, their deaths are chronicled, their last hours examined for meaning. Common people die unrecorded, their passing noted only in parish registers, a name and date marking existence. Suicide is both crime and sin, the body buried at crossroads with a stake through the heart to prevent haunting. Families go to great lengths to present suicide as accident or natural death, avoiding the stigma and the burial shame. Coroners sometimes cooperate, recording death by misadventure when evidence suggests otherwise. The compassion is unofficial but real. Accidental deaths are frequent in an age of fire, horses, poorly built structures, dangerous occupations, and minimal safety awareness. Falls from scaffolding, drowning in the Thames, house fires, horse kicks, machinery accidents, death arrives suddenly for workers and wealthy alike. The response is investigation if the death is suspicious, otherwise just acceptance. Accidents happen. Life goes on. War deaths receive mixed responses depending on class and context. A naval officer dying heroically is celebrated, his name on monuments, his family proud. A pressed sailor dying of disease in the hold is unmourned officially, just a casualty statistic. Soldiers killed in battle at least die doing their duty. Soldiers dying of fever in barracks waste away without glory. The disparity in memorialization reflects social hierarchy even in death. Disease epidemics bring mass death, gravediggers working overtime, coffins stacked awaiting burial. Normal mourning protocols collapse, too many dead, too fast. Families do what they can, but when 6 people die in a week, elaborate mourning becomes impossible. The survivors are grateful to simply get bodies buried before they putrefy completely. Death creates paperwork, wills, probate, property transfers. The wealthy leave detailed instructions, property carefully divided, executors appointed. The poor leave little but debts, their few possessions sold to cover burial costs. Contested wills create family drama, siblings fighting over inheritance, widows battling adult children, lawyers getting wealthy from family misery.
The art of dying well, ars moriendi, remains important. A good death means consciousness at the end, time for goodbyes, religious consolation, acceptance of fate. A bad death is sudden, unprepared, without last rites. The dying are coached through the process, reminded to forgive enemies, settle affairs, make peace with God. Death is a performance with high stakes, the transition from life judged by witnesses. Ghosts of improper burials supposedly haunt the living, suicides, murder victims, those denied Christian burial. The solution is proper interment, prayers, sometimes exorcism. The Church has procedures for laying troublesome spirits, a holdover from Catholic traditions surviving in Protestant practice. Most hauntings are explained away naturally, but some resist explanation, becoming local legends. We'll close this section in a graveyard at twilight, the stones casting long shadows, the sexton locking the gate, the dead settling in for another night. Tomorrow morning they'll be undisturbed, probably, unless the resurrection men come calling. The living will wake, dress in their blacks and grays, perform their grief, and carry on. Death is theater, commerce, terror, and mundane fact all at once in Georgian England. The period manages to be both matter-of-fact about mortality and deeply superstitious about its mechanics. Everyone dies, but how you die, how you're mourned, how you're buried, these things matter intensely, defining status and respectability even in death. Tomorrow we'll turn to the softer horrors, the superstitions that haunted daily life, the folk beliefs that governed behavior, the small fears that accumulated into a worldview where danger lurked in mirrors, crossroads, and accidentally placed shoes. The mourning begins with small rituals that keep catastrophe at bay, or so people believe. You rise on the right foot, never the left. You don't sing before breakfast, or you'll cry before bedtime. You avoid walking under ladders, not just because something might fall, but because it forms a triangle, the Trinity,
and violating sacred geometry invites bad luck. The Georgian day is mined with tiny perils, each requiring specific countermeasures passed down through generations. Luck is not random, but something you can influence through proper behavior. Find a horseshoe, hang it points up over your door to catch good fortune. Spill salt, throw a pinch over your left shoulder into the devil's eyes. See a single magpie, salute it, and ask after its wife. Good morning, Mr. Magpie. How is your lady wife today? Ignore these rituals and you're tempting fate, which in Georgian England is a gambler with loaded dice. Animals carry omens. A black cat crossing your path is lucky in England, unlucky in other countries. A robin entering the house means death will follow. A howling dog hears something humans can't, perhaps death approaching, perhaps spirits passing. Crows are wise and sinister. Ravens know secrets. Owls are death omens. The natural world speaks constantly if you know the language. Birds specifically seem to bridge the world of living and dead. A bird tapping at the window wants to come in, and what comes with it? News of death, usually. Birds flying into houses are souls trying to return, or death trying to leave, depending on the direction. Killing a robin brings terrible luck. They're God's favorites, marked with red breasts from pulling thorns from Christ's crown. Swallows are sailors' souls, never harmed by those who depend on the sea.
Weather omens predict the future if read correctly. Red sky at morning, sailors take warning. Red sky at night, sailors delight. Rain on your wedding day brings tears to the marriage. Sunshine means happiness. Storms mean trouble. Fog means confusion. The metaphors are simple but deeply believed. Thunder during a funeral means the deceased is settling into heaven, or hell, depending on who's interpreting. Dreams require careful analysis. Dreaming of teeth falling out means death in the family. Dreaming of muddy water means trouble ahead. Dreaming of the dead means they're trying to communicate. Listen carefully to what they say. Dream books sell well, offering interpretations for every possible vision. Some dreams are so ominous that speaking them aloud brings bad luck. Better to keep certain nightmares private. Numbers carry weight. 7 is lucky. 7 days of creation, 7 deadly sins, lucky 7. 13 is unlucky, especially Friday the 13th. 3 is powerful. Things happen in threes. Third time's the charm. Bad luck comes in threes. Counting certain things brings bad luck. Never count your money while gambling. Never count your children or you'll lose one. Never count your blessings or they'll disappear. The threshold is sacred and dangerous. Carrying a bride over the threshold protects her from evil spirits waiting to trip her. Starting marriage with a stumble is terrible luck. Sweeping dirt out the door after sunset sweeps away fortune. A stranger on the doorstep at midnight is either death or transformation. Nothing good arrives that late. The threshold marks the boundary between safe domestic space and dangerous outside world. Shoes carry surprising significance. Never place them on a table, that's death luck. Never give them as gifts to your lover or they'll walk away. New shoes squeaking is lucky, they're singing for their supper. Shoes under the bed with toes pointing out invite nightmares. The left shoe should be put on first, then the right. Reverse this and you'll have a bad day. The specificity of these beliefs is matched only by the conviction with which they're held. Mirrors are portals and truth-tellers and dangers. Break a mirror, get 7 years bad luck. The soul is reflected in mirrors. Breaking one damages your soul. Cover mirrors when someone dies or their soul might get trapped in reflection. Mirrors in bedrooms should be covered at night or you might see things you shouldn't. Looking in a mirror by candlelight summons dangers better left unsummoned. Crossroads are places of power where multiple paths meet, creating liminal space where magic works differently. Bury suicides at crossroads so their confused spirits can't find their way home to haunt. Make deals with the devil at crossroads at midnight. Robert Johnson will make this famous in blues legend later, but the belief is old. Walk around crossroads, never directly through them, especially on Samhain and other thin times when barriers between worlds weaken. Rowan trees protect against witches, as does iron. Hang iron horseshoes, carry iron nails, place iron by the door. Witches can't cross running water. Build your house near a stream for protection.
Salt circles trap evil. Bread and salt offered to visitors ensures they mean no harm. The defenses are layered, redundant, belt and suspenders against supernatural threats. Witchcraft remains feared despite witch trials becoming rare. A sour batch of milk, a sudden illness, cattle dying, these might be natural or might be cursing. Cunning folk offer counterspells, making witch bottles filled with pins, urine, and hair buried under thresholds or chimneys to reflect curses back to their source. Swimming suspected witches, throwing them in water to see if they float, guilty, or sink, innocent but possibly drowned, occasionally still happens in rural areas. Love magic persists everywhere. To dream of your true love, sleep with a piece of wedding cake under your pillow. To attract someone, use certain herbs, vervain, yarrow, rose petals. To break unwanted attention, cross running water. They can't follow. Valentine's Day is for divination as much as romance. The first person you see is your destined partner. Prophetic dreams arrive that night. Birds choose their mates, and so should you. May Day is dangerous, the boundary between spring and summer, a time when the veil thins. Don't wash your face in May Day's dew unless you want fairy attention. Might seem like good luck, might be terrible. The May Queen is crowned, celebrations happen, but underneath runs awareness that this is a borrowed day, rules suspended, danger heightened. Return to normal gratefully on May 2nd. Halloween, or All Hallows' Eve, or Samhain in older traditions, is the year's most dangerous night. The dead walk, spirits roam, evil has permission. Keep your fires burning, your doors locked, your children inside. Leave offerings for the dead, food, drink, respect. Dress in frightening costume to confuse evil spirits who might otherwise recognize and target you. The tradition is ancient, pre-Christian, persistent despite church disapproval. Fairies are real and dangerous in folk belief. They steal babies, replacing them with changelings, fairy children left in exchange. The changeling cries constantly, doesn't thrive, doesn't look quite right. Solutions range from kindness, treat it well and the fairies might return your child, to cruelty, threaten it until the fairies take it back. Some changelings are probably just difficult or disabled children, but the belief provides explanation for parental disappointment. Fairy rings, circles of mushrooms, mark where fairies dance. Enter one and you'll be compelled to dance until you collapse or die. Or you'll be taken to fairyland where time runs differently. Step back out and decades have passed. Or you'll just have bad luck for a year. The specific consequences vary regionally, but the warning is consistent. Avoid fairy rings. Wells and springs have spirits requiring propitiation. Throw in a coin when drawing water, payment for what you take. On certain holy days, wells are decorated with flowers and offerings. Some wells cure specific ailments if approached with proper ritual and respect. St. Winfred's Well in Wales attracts pilgrims. Holy wells dot the landscape, Christianity placing saints where once pagan spirits lived. Trees have souls and memories. Harm an oak and bad luck follows. Oaks are sacred, ancient, respected. Hawthorn is fairy territory. Cutting it brings disaster. Yew grows in graveyards, its roots reaching down to the dead. Willow weeps for good reason. It knows sorrow. Apple trees must be wassailed in winter, singing to them, toasting them with cider, or the next harvest fails. The tree cult runs deep in British folk consciousness.
Babies require extra protection, being especially vulnerable to evil eye, fairy theft, and general bad luck. Use coral teething rings. Coral protects. Never praise a baby's beauty or you'll attract fairy attention. Say something mildly insulting instead. Don't cut a baby's hair before their first birthday. Christen them quickly before evil gets comfortable. The godparent's first gift should be silver, an egg or spoon, ensuring the child never goes hungry. Sneezing means your soul briefly leaves your body, creating vulnerability. God bless you pushes it back in and protects the gap. Say it quickly or the devil might enter. Hiccups are similar. Your soul is loose, thumping against your ribs trying to settle. Hold your breath, drink water backward, get scared, anything to stabilize your soul's position. Whistling indoors summons the devil, or wind, or both. Never whistle in a coal mine or you'll cause a collapse. Whistling women and crowing hens are unnatural, upsetting divine order. A whistling woman and a crowing hen are neither fit for God nor men. The prejudice has staying power, appearing in proverbs across centuries. Pregnancy surrounds itself with superstitions. The mother's cravings must be satisfied or the baby will be marked. Deny her strawberries and the baby might have a strawberry birthmark. Looking at ugly things makes ugly babies. Shock or fright marks the child. Reaching overhead tangles the umbilical cord. Step over the father's shoes to predict the baby's gender. Complicated ritual with questionable accuracy. Birth position matters. Born with a caul, the amniotic sac over the face, means good luck, psychic powers, or immunity to drowning depending on the source. Death omens multiply beyond birds at windows. A picture falling from the wall means death. 3 knocks with no one there means death. Howling dogs, stopped clocks, coffin-shaped flowers, death announces itself in countless ways if you're watching. Some people claim to smell death, a particular odor that arrives before the person actually dies. Dismissing these omens is possible, but risky. What if you're wrong? Corpse candles, mysterious lights seen hovering over areas where someone will soon die or where bodies are buried, are widely reported. Marshland produces enough methane for actual ghostly lights, providing rational explanations skeptics use and believers ignore. What matters isn't the science, but the meaning. The lights are messages, warnings, confirmations of supernatural order. Bargains with the devil require crossroads, midnight, desperation, and something to offer. Usually, your soul. The devil appears as a gentleman, well-dressed, charming, proposing reasonable terms for unreasonable prices. Sign in blood, get your heart's desire, enjoy it for 7 years, then the bill comes due. These stories serve as warnings, but also as explanations for sudden success. How else could that person get so wealthy, talented, or lucky so quickly? Cursing works if you have the knowledge and the spite. A proper curse requires ritual, ingredients, intention. Cursing someone's grave means they won't rest. Cursing someone's children hits them where it hurts most. Counter curses and protections exist, wearing certain herbs, carrying blessed objects, living a virtuous life. But curses clearly work sometimes. How else to explain when the cursed person actually does suffer?
Folk medicine blurs into superstitions seamlessly. Wearing amber prevents disease. Carrying a potato prevents rheumatism. Touch a toad for warts. Let a snail crawl over them, they'll disappear. The king's touch cures scrofula. People travel to touch the monarch, a practice both governments and sufferers believe in. Sympathetic magic uses like to cure like. A dog bite cures rabies if you burn the dog's hair and swallow the ashes. Weather can be influenced by proper ritual. Throw a stone at the new moon for luck. Never point at a rainbow or your finger will rot. Red sky at night might be natural, but you can encourage good weather by behaving virtuously. God rewards the righteous with sunshine. Blame yourself when it rains on important days. What did you do wrong to anger the heavens? Church bells drive away evil, the reason they're rung during storms. The sound literally pushes evil away, protecting the parish. Stop ringing and evil rushes back. Some parishes inscribe bells with protective phrases, "I ring to ward off plague," or "My sound breaks evil's power." The bells are weapons as much as announcements. Bread fresh from the oven shouldn't be cut until it's cool. Cutting hot bread invites the devil. Bread turned upside down is terrible luck, wasting God's blessing. Throwing away bread means starving in the afterlife. The staff of life demands respect, its symbolism heavy with Christian and pagan meanings layered across centuries. Pins are lucky to find, unlucky to give. See a pin, pick it up. All day long you'll have good luck. See a pin, let it lay. Bad luck you'll have all day. But never give pins as gifts. You're pinning down the friendship, ensuring it won't grow. Brides shouldn't keep their wedding dress pins, or the marriage will be pin-stuck, stagnant. The tiny objects carry disproportionate significance. New Year brings specific traditions. First footing requires the first person entering your house after midnight to be dark-haired and male, carrying coal, salt, and coins, ensuring warmth, flavor, and prosperity. A woman or red-haired man first footing brings bad luck all year. The tradition is taken seriously. Some families arrange their first footer in advance, bribing the right person to knock at 12:01. Washing on New Year's Day washes away family members. You'll lose someone during the year. Don't sweep on New Year's or you'll sweep away luck. Don't let anything leave the house before something enters. Maintain positive flow. Don't cry on New Year's or you'll cry all year. The day sets the year's tone, its actions rippling forward 12 months. Sailors have their own elaborate superstitions. Never start a voyage on Friday. Never kill a dolphin or albatross. They're good luck. Women on ships are bad luck, except for figureheads. Whistling calls the wind, which sounds useful until you realize it might call storms. Cats on ships are good luck. They control rats and can predict weather by their behavior. Losing a bucket overboard means someone will drown. The Navy respects these beliefs even as officers pretend skepticism. Renaming a ship brings disaster. It confuses the ship's spirit. Launching without proper ceremony invites trouble. Certain ships are born unlucky, suffering accident after accident, eventually broken up to stop the curse spreading. The sea is conscious in sailors' minds, demanding respect and sacrifice, remembering insults forever.
Miners have matching superstitions for their underworld workplace. No whistling underground. Women in mines are catastrophically bad luck. Their presence angers the mine spirits. Certain creatures, rats, mice, are good luck if treated well, the tunnel spirits in animal form. A mine acting up, creaking, groaning, misbehaving, is talking, warning of collapse. Ignore the warnings at your peril. Ghosts of miners killed in collapses haunt the tunnels, warning living miners of danger. See a ghost? Leave that section. Hear knocking with no one there? Retreat. Tommyknockers are warning of collapse. These aren't just stories, but safety procedures disguised as superstition. The belief in mine spirits might save more lives than it costs by encouraging caution. Urban superstitions develop alongside rural ones. Chimney sweeps bring luck. Touch one for good fortune. Meeting a funeral procession requires either joining briefly or turning around completely. Never cross its path. Certain streets have reputations for bad luck, addresses where tenants never prosper. Buildings remember their violent pasts, rooms where murders happened staying cold forever. Money has its own lore. Never pick up a penny lying tails up, bad luck. Always spit on the first money you earn each day for luck. Itching palms mean money coming or going. Right hand means receiving, left means paying out. Count your money at new moon for increase, never at full moon. Keep a coin in your pocket at all times or you'll attract poverty. Clothing worn backward invites disaster. Put your shirt on inside out accidentally, leave it. Changing courts bad luck. But doing it deliberately as disguise works. Fairies can't recognize you in reversed clothes. The logic twists uncomfortably, but that's superstition. Contradictions are features, not bugs. Books falling open to specific pages carry messages. The Bible opening randomly provides divination. Read the passage where it falls for guidance. Other books do similar work. Your unconscious hand is guided by higher powers, revealing what you need to know. Skeptics call it random, believers find prophecy. Knives as gifts sever relationships. The sharp edge cuts friendship. The solution is to demand payment, even a penny, making it a purchase instead of gift. Scissors work the same way, and sharp words, and any blade. The gift itself isn't the problem, the symbolism is. Pay the penny and everyone's safe. Peacock feathers indoors bring terrible luck. The eyes on the feathers are evil eye multiplied. Never bring them inside, never use them in arrangements. The bird itself is fine, even beautiful, but those detached feathers carry curse. Fashion doesn't care. Peacock feathers appear in hats, fans, decorations, and believers mutter about consequences. Walking under ladders creates bad luck triangles, but also practical danger, something might fall. Is the superstition just safety advice disguised as mysticism? Maybe. But plenty of superstitions have no practical basis and yet persist because belief makes them real enough. Step on a crack, break your mother's back. Irrational, but powerful.
Black magic and white magic both exist in folk understanding. Cunning folk practice white magic, healing, finding lost objects, breaking cruces. Black magic causes harm deliberately, and those who practice it are dangerous, to be avoided or counterspelled. The village witch might be white or black or both, depending on who's talking. Reputation and reality don't always align. Protection charms are everywhere. Witch bottles buried in walls, dried cats bricked into foundations during construction, shoes hidden in chimneys. These aren't medieval holdovers, but actively maintained traditions in Georgian houses. Renovating old buildings reveals dozens of hidden charms, their purpose forgotten, but their placement deliberate. Luck can be transferred, stolen, or shared. Touching someone lucky makes you lucky. Envying someone's luck curses them. Boasting about good luck invites reversal. The universe doesn't like show-offs. Stay humble, stay grateful, touch wood after expressing hope for good weather, and made it to evening without invoking any major curses. Small victories, these daily negotiations with fate. But they add up. String enough careful days together and maybe, just maybe, you'll make it through life without angering whatever forces govern luck, death, and the space between. Tomorrow we delve into our final section, the parts of Georgian life that don't fit neatly into other categories, but are too strange, too revealing, or too important to ignore. The oddities, the contradictions, the moments where the elegant facade cracks and something genuinely weird peers through. Morning arrives with its usual sounds, but today we're noticing the things that don't quite fit. The aspects of Georgian England that resist easy categorization, the contradictions that make the period endlessly fascinating.